welcome to the In His Voice podcast, hosted by me, Rob L. Lowe. You know it, where we talk about those things that deeply impact the lives of boys and men without ever bashing women. We talk about everything from the bedroom to the boardroom, from the playground to the stadium, and everything in between. So, hey, no day like today, it's a better day to talk about this subject. Fellas, why do we have a problem when girls go on girls trips, but guys, we think it's okay when men take guy trips? So let's first debunk the thought about guy trips. Let's talk about what's real and what's not real. So let's get this over with before we get into the subject of girls trips. So yes, guys do take guy trips. And many of those guy trips are full of buffoonery and all the BS that people think guys do. That's true. It happens. It absolutely happens, right? Guys go out the country to different countries, to different places around the world, and they live in the moment and they partake in all the festivities. Yes, that does happen on some guys' trips. But there are other guys' trips I can tell you from personal experience where that's not always the case. There are guys that I know who do guys trips and literally they go golfing. They actually have brotherhood retreats where they do Bible study and spiritual prayer together. They hold each other accountable. And probably the most extreme thing they would do is like paintballing or something like that in the jungle. But they go because the intent of the guys trip is to uplift each other, to support whatever relationship that those men are in and help drive them closer to a relationship with God. We don't often hear about those guys' trips. We do hear about all the ones where they're going to Colombia, Brazil, Dominican, in Asia. We hear about those, but we don't hear about the brothers that are doing brotherhood retreats where they're talking about spiritual growth and nurturing each other. And so I want to make sure I highlight that, and because for women and men, not all guy trips are bad. Not all guy trips are, excuse my French, whore trips, right? But for the ones that are, I'm not condoning them by no means. The hard part is I've been on some of those guy trips personally, and it's hurtful to see that in these other countries that ladies are subjective to this, willfully subjected to this, in some cases unwillfully. Like I've seen it. And I've seen it that what they make in some of these countries in a weekend will feed their entire family, including their parents and many of them who have husbands. They will go back to the city that they're from, and what they make in a weekend or a week is more than a cardiologist makes in a month in that country. I want you to think about that. It's more than a cardiologist makes in a month. And so there's this mixed thing you go like, because they need it. But man, does it have to be at your expense? And I wrestle with that. I've personally been in those situations where it really hurt me to see it. And I had to make a conscious decision, like, yeah, I'm not going back to that. That's not what I'm doing. But I'm not knocking people who do it. I'm just saying there's a cost to each one of those. But on this show, let's talk about girls' trips. I just talked about guys' trips. I tried to debunk the myths. I tried to talk about the thing that no one talks about and how it impacts the lives of those young ladies there. And if you go to guys' trip and you're into men, that's your thing. This ain't what the show's about, though. I'm just going to tell you right now. So don't get mad at me and don't put crazy stuff in the comments. It just ain't my cup of tea. But if it's yours, cool, drink it. It's all good. But girls' trips. Now, here's what's crazy. I have a lot of female friends. A lot that I grew up with, like my sisters and people that I met over the years. And if you ask most women when women go on a girls' trip, do they do anything? Here's what you'll hear. 99.9% of the time. Nah, girls ain't like guys. We don't go down there and we don't be sleeping around. We don't do that. We don't be paying for strange men every night. That's true. They don't. They absolutely don't. But what I can tell you, I know some women that have been on girls' trips, and here's what they told me. Women don't go down there and pay for it. But on many girls' trips, one or two of the girls in the crew, it may not be everybody, might be the life of the party. They may be the ones that when they meet a stranger or someone that they like, no, they're not paying for it and they're not getting paid, but they down for the stuff. They down for it to happen because they went with the intent on having a good time. Whether they were single, had someone or not, they understood the mission when they went on the girls' trip. The only difference is they're not paying for it, and it's generally not everybody. It's generally one or two within the clique, and girls often, the difference between men and women on girls' trip, I think, is that when women on girls' trips, when they go out, other women worry about them. They generally worry about, hey, I just need to make sure she's safe. I need to make sure she gets back. I need to make sure that nothing happens to her. They worry about those things, especially when it's a stranger. Men, we think about that, but in most cases, we're not letting someone go somewhere. They got to come to the crib, and the person, we just need to know they safe upstairs wherever they gonna be. We generally ain't letting them go somewhere. And I don't know if women do the same thing where the woman leaves. The women that I know who I've met, who are friends, they would leave and go stay with the guy. They generally wouldn't let the guy come stay with them because the other women in the house didn't feel comfortable. So that's where the worry comes from. But if you're watching this podcast, if you're honest, have you ever been on a girls' trip where someone in your crew was about that life? Again, I don't think on girls' trips that they're like men. I think most girls' trips, women go and they turn up, right? They get a villa. They drink, they all go out together, they party, they may go to a strip club, they may do shots, they may even flirt and grind on a dude at a club. But when they leave, they all leave together. But there's always that one or two who about that life. Now, let me tell you why men struggle with girls' trips. So if you remember the movie Girls Trip with Jada Pinkett Smith and Queen Latifah, Regina Hall, and the comedian. I can't think of her name, but you know who I'm talking about. And if you saw the four personalities, one is about their life, one super conservative, there's always a successful one, and there's always one or two who don't get along with somebody else in the clique, but they make it work. But when men think of girls' trip, we think about women go for most part because they're trying to set it off, or because somebody in the crew don't like them, or meaning don't like the man, and it's not a good influence. There's a lot of insecurities that come with a girls' trip, and it's really, 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 really crazy. Yeah, and Tiffany Haddish, that's who I was thinking of as the fourth person. But I want to read something as to why men struggle with girls' trips. So I did some research. I said, what's the most common reason why men have insecurities with girls' trips? So here's what I got. Trust issues. If trust isn't solid on a relationship, a partner might worry about what could happen on the trip. Insecurity, men who have insecurities about, and that's different than trust, right? Trust is one thing, but insecurity is like they might find somebody better than me. Control issues. Now, this is a big one for women. I'm going to come back. Just control issues, right? Men who feel like women don't have a right to do and live their life, and that they need permission from the man. I struggle with that. Stereotypes and misconceptions, because you see movies like Stella Got Her Groove Back. You see movie like Girls Trip, and you start to think of the double grapefruit. And listen, men, we're visual creatures, and women, you need to know this. The worst thing a man wants to do is to visualize his wife being submissive to another man. I'm going to tell you that right now. That's the worst image in our mind. The visualization of your wife or your girlfriend being submissive physically to another man. Passion is one thing, but submissive and he's in control and you're enjoying it, and we ever find that out, it's over. It's a wrap. Ain't no coming back from that. I'm going to tell you that right now. That's something we can never get out of our head. That's why if a man ever sees a video of his girl and he find out it's over, he might as well leave. There's no way you coming back from that with him. Jealousy, right? Jealousy. Someone who's just always jealous, and you know that before you even go on the girls' trip. And then communication gaps. This is a big one. So I've been on some guy trips. I'm going to go through each one of these in more detail now. But let's start with communication gaps. If you go on a guy's trip or a girl's trip, make sure you're talking to your loved ones back home. One, you're not communicating raises doubt. Two, people are worried. Like, you just have common courtesy. I don't care what you're doing, but you owe the people back home the respect of just communicating with them, letting them know you're okay. And if you don't want to tell them what you're doing, just let them know you're okay. But communication is a big piece. I want to go back to this thing about control. So now I've been on 3 guys' trips. I've only enjoyed one of them, right? And I would do another one, but I would do it very different than what I've done before. But I can tell you this, and if you ever met her, she'll tell you it's true. I never control or try to control what my wife does or where she goes. Never. I never want to be like that. And it's not because I want freedom. It's because that's a grown woman who gets to make her own choices. I think we're men and women, because of our insecurities and our trust issues, if a man says he's going on a guy's trip, if a woman automatically thinks that he's going to go have sex with another woman, then you need to go figure out why you feel that way. Is that something he's done, or is that something about you? Is that some trust issues you have in the past that you're projecting? But if a person says they want to go on a guy trip, 2 things. If they're afraid to tell you they want to go on a guy's trip, or if they're afraid to tell you they want to go on a girl's trip, that's a problem in itself. If they're afraid that they can't even tell you that they want to go on one for the fear of you overreacting, then that means there's some serious trust and communication gaps in your relationship. So that's one piece. But the other piece is, and if you struggle with them to want to go, you got to go figure out what that is. See, I have this philosophy, like, people are going to do what they want to do no matter what. You can't control that. And that thing I talked about, control issues, that's exactly what people try to do. If I keep tabs on them, if I keep guards on them, then they won't do wrong. Well, no, they just won't do wrong in front of you. And they'll figure out other ways to do wrong. But if you're trying to keep somebody from doing wrong by making sure you lock them up, that never works. So you have to trust people enough to know that even if they're not in your presence, they love you enough or they respect you enough to do right by you. So this idea of men struggling with women to go on girls' trip, how much of that is projection of the insecurities you have because of what happened on your trip? How much of that is you wonder if you've done everything you're supposed to do as a man to make her feel respected and appreciated and nurtured, so that when she does go on a guy's trip or a girl's trip, there's no one who will come and turn her head, even if she flirts, even if she takes shots, even if she lives in the moment, she can't wait to come back to you. If you worried about that, then you have bigger issues in your relationship than a girl's trip. Now, fellas and women, here's something I didn't talk about. Don't plan guys' trips and girls' trips around events that are special to your family, or if it's going to create a financial burden, because then that's just being damn selfish. So I would not want to create a guy's trip during Mother's Day, during Christmas, during my anniversary, like her birthday. Like, I wouldn't want to create a guy's trip where I'm going to miss something that is very special to the people that I care for. Nor will I take a guy's trip if the cost of doing some is going to create a burden for my family. Why would I do that? And so, ladies, girls' trips, don't be selfish to the point where you take a trip when you know it's negligibly going to impact the lives of those that are dependent on you, that are close to you. Even if your girls want to do the trip, sometimes you got to say, hey, ladies, I can't go on this trip. Why? Because I have this thing coming up. And if you hang with people and they do the same trip every year, and they know that trip is important, that date is important to you for a family reason, and they're not willing to change that date, then those are not your friends. Those are not the people you want to hang with. You're just going on a girls' trip with people who let you tag along. But clearly, your opinion doesn't matter. Because if they did, they would respect what's important to you, if it's reasonable, and then try to accommodate that in future trips. I guess I'm going to wrap up, and I want y'all to think about this. Girls' trips, guy trips. Listen, excuse my French. If you're going to go down there and get it in and do all the dirt, you're going to do that at home. That's who you are. It's what you do. You're not suddenly going to go on a girl's trip or a guy's trip and then have this epiphany that, oh my God, I can do all these things I've never done before that I shouldn't do. No, you're just doing it now with less inhibitions. So don't blame your actions or the actions of your partners on the trip. Because a person can go on a trip with others, women or men, and have a good time. I think this would be my only caveat. This is the only place I would struggle with. You can't go on a girls' trip. And I would say this. I would not want my wife to go on a girls' trip where there's other men on the trip. So it's a guy and girls' trip and I'm not going. That I won't do. Girls' trip, okay. Guys and girls trip, it's probably where I would draw the line personally. Someone else may be open to that, and that's okay. But I wouldn't expect my wife to want me to go on a girls trip or a guy's trip with other girls who are going to be there, and she's not coming. I wouldn't entertain that, and I wouldn't present that to her as even an option or something I would do. But I will tell you this: find out what makes you happy, find out places you want to go. And then probably in the end, take a trip together. And if you go together, it becomes a guy and a girl trip. And you can do everything that you would do by yourself or with others. Just do it with the person that you care for. And then when you do that, I think you have less stress, less worries, less insecurities if you decide to take a guy's or girl's trip separate with friends. Just remember, it's all about respect. It's all about communication. It's all about who you are before you go. It's not about who you are when you get there, okay? Listen, I hope you got something out of this. If you've been on a guy's trip and it was a great experience, or a girl's trip or a great experience, be sure to share your comments. And as always, make sure you like and subscribe to this podcast. Take care. I'll talk to you later. God bless. I'll see you on the next episode of In His Voice.